This is the story of how a closed branch line, this unassuming pub, and hundreds of volunteers came together to create the Severn Valley Railway you see today. It's February the 1st, 1862. Main lines are stretching out across Great Britain in every direction. In the Severn Valley, a 40-mile branch line connecting Hartlebury with Shrewsbury sees its first passenger service. For the next century, freight trains worked their way up and down the line, the backbone of local industry. Collieries, factories and power stations were all supplied by rail. But it was not to last. The convenience of door-to-door goods transport via lorry began the steady decline of freight on the line. Passenger services were already being withdrawn when, in March 1963, the Beeching Report officially spelt the end of many small branch lines like the Severn Valley Railway. As British Railways advanced southwards, tearing up track towards Bridgnorth, a meeting was called in Kidderminster. A meeting that would change the fate of this delightful branch line. And it took place here in the Cooper's Arms. It's July the 6th, 1965. A local resident named Keith Beddoes has brought everyone together to discuss the preservation of a railway.
Now, they are ripping up miles of track, and if we don't do something about it, nobody else is going, right?
Keith Beddoes managed to draw together all these people to the Cooper's Arms to see what the cross-section of view was to save a railway. He was the sort of germ of the whole idea.
Hang on a minute now, where's the money coming from?
The general discussion at the Cooper's Arms was it viable? What were the dangers? Were we going to raise the money? And what railway should be preserved?
The Clibberry-Mortimer-Ditton Priors line, which was an Admiralty line, the Bewdley to Tenbury line, which was very beautiful but didn't carry many people, or the Severn Valley line, which at that time was extant up to Bridgnorth. And the consensus of the meeting was that the Severn Valley line was the one to go for.
And so a society was formed with the intention of preserving the Severn Valley line. Just a few days later, the group went to investigate Bridgnorth Station for themselves.
When we first came, I can always remember it, on looking out on the platform, the first thing was the grass was growing level with the platform on the tracks. The second thing was, of course, unfortunately, the signal box was partly dismantled.
And we noticed the station name board on platform 2 lying on the ground, and so we lifted it up to take a photograph and hold it in its rightful place. To be hailed by this voice, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" And we found that George Thorpe had kept the railway refreshment room going after the railway closed in 1963, and he came out onto platform 1 with a shotgun, thinking we were a group of vandals. We hastily convinced him that we were nothing like.
With the intention of buying the track between Hampton Load and Bridgnorth, the ambitious preservationists decided to walk the line between the stations.
And to our horror, we saw that contractors had started cutting up the track from the north end where the tunnel was and had virtually reached platform 1. And this is when John Garth was deputed to send the famous telegrams off to British Rail saying, "Please stop cutting the line, we want to talk to you." And luckily, they were prepared to listen to us. They put a stay of execution on lifting the line.
You know, to think that a bunch of people, quite amateurish, could send a telegram and stop the line being lifted, I think it was a pretty good feat.
Having successfully halted the destruction, it was time for the society to look into purchasing the track between the two stations.
Still, at that stage, we had no idea what we were entering into, so, you know, big money and that sort of thing didn't really cross our minds.
We hoped that we might be able to preserve just 4.5 miles of railway from Bridgnorth to Hampton Load. We'd already been told that the figure would be £25,000 to buy that first section of line.
The next 2 years saw the Society enter a period of intense fundraising. Steam galas were held at Bridgnorth Station with traction engines, fairground rides, and even a working steam engine, albeit somewhat smaller than the real thing. Membership increased steadily, and for many, a first taste of railway work was to be found in repairing station platforms and relaying track. Finally, on January the 1st, 1967, contracts were exchanged, and the line between Bridgnorth and Hampton Load was purchased, ready for an exciting arrival later that year.
March the 25th, 1967, etched on my memory still, when we had our first steam locomotive at Bridgnorth Station.
And when 3205 arrived, membership increased. All sorts of people came to the railway who realised that we were serious.
And suddenly the place was alive with the sound of steam.
But things were never easy for the preservationists. It took 3 years of struggling to finally secure a light railway order which allowed them to take passengers. And on Saturday, the 23rd of May 1970, a regular service began to run from Bridgnorth to Hampton Load.
They started accumulating engines, and other people with the same thoughts and interest started bringing engines directly from British Railways or industrial use.
The Severn Valley Railway is helped every day by hundreds of staff and volunteers following in the footsteps of those pioneering preservationists who first met in the Cooper's Arms over 40 years ago.
We've really built the railway between hundreds of people, but we're very, very much involved with it, and it's part of our lives, and it's part of my life, therefore, that you're really bound up in it and feel very passionate about it.
It is absolutely incredible to see people enjoying the railway as they knew it. The young ones asking their grandfathers, grandmothers, was it like this in your day? Oh yes, love, it certainly was. You know, this is just how it used to be. And really, I think we've got something to be proud of.